Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
See,
That's the
like I
fifth
said,
layer of the
5
title.
layers, right? Oh,
You know
man.
what? I'll give credit. If Jim meant that one, I laugh.
Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Why else? There's no Olympia in that area, right? So, or I'm not a student of history anyway, but yeah, like that's it. He invented this whole city's name just to make a pun on that. So, all right.
I wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put it past them.
We're not focusing on that book anymore.
Right. I mean, because
No.
if we're trying to avoid spoilers, I would
Yeah.
dare say that counts. So, like 3 kinds from one statement. So, yeah.
All right. We're supposed to be starting with Aeronaut's Windlass again. Eventually, we can get through this book. We're 29% way through. Come on, we can do this.
And this is our 3rd episode. So yeah, let's get on with it.
Yeah. All right. So we start with chapter 19, and we're inside the mind of Ronaldo Aspira, who's currently a major, and he's walking through Habel Landing as he's infiltrated, and he hates it.
So wait, we're getting a bad guy perspective chapter again, like we used to get from what's his name?
Fidelius.
Yeah, Fidelius. Thank you.
Yeah. No, Aspira's Fidelius.
Yeah,
just a little bit more.
I'm just
a little less bitter.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So he's in Habel Landing, and he hates it because it's cramped. He hates it because it's wealthy, because everything's made out of wood, which is expensive.
And burns. Seriously, guys. Spirestone, what's wrong with you?
Well, it didn't have enough space for the amount of people they want to fit in there. And they even cutting the Habel in half, like vertically, they still have plenty of space for people. They just have to make it out of wood. And they can. And he hates them that they can. Because it's way nicer than his.
Bastards.
He calls it a warren for rats and thinks like they're going to get their comeuppance because he still thinks of them as being the enemies of Aurora for being people, traders, merchants of a different spire. And how dare they have
the king said you're the enemy, therefore you're the enemy type of thing. I mean, yeah, it's kind of subtle, especially in the first book, but it's like, Aurora apparently, like, this is a thing they do, right? That's how they get their armada and just whatever. It's like they just decide a spire needs to go and they invade it and they take over their wealth and whatever. So there's definitely some historical parallels there. And for whatever reason, Albion is now the target of that, Yeah.
So
we're not allowed to talk about the next book, so I can't say more.
Exactly. He calls them greedy, gnawing, thieving rats because somehow they're thieving in the fact that they have a successful trade port.
Yeah, you're more successful than me, so you must be cheating,
Now you know my pain, Justin.
Yeah.
And hello.
Oh, hi.
All right, so Aspira is walking through the Habel in disguise to be able to talk to Cavendish. He needs her help, and he hates that because she's fucking terrifying. God, is this the introduction for Cavendish? It must be. Yes, because he also...
The first time he's in her chambers with the tea. If this is it, then yeah, this is the first time.
Because he sees Sark, and he just calls it Sark, her Batman. Like, hasn't said her name yet, just highlights the fact that it's her, and they're both scary. And a warrior born, tall, gaunt, long, slender limbs, and he reminds Aspira of a hunting spider instead of the cats that warrior born seem to be about usually, which still would like an answer about. And Sark doesn't like anybody other than Cavendish, and so he's rude to Aspira. Aspira has to try to be polite back because does Cavendish's issues extend to Sark? And why does he need to speak to her anyway? Well, there's a problem. And this is about the verminositor that went missing. And now he ran into the Auroran Marines in their little hideout in the ventilation tunnels. And so now they need to torture him to make sure that no one is going to find them again. And then drop his body somewhere.
Especially because, slight world building, verminositors always work in pairs, just in case shit like this happens. But they're known to, like, this might get explained later in the chapter, but it's like they're known to sometimes take like contracting jobs, and he might have been trying to make a spare buck on the side, but they're like, where's your partner, because you always work in pairs. So
as Justin is a certified Verminosaur,
true story. Yeah, certified myself, made my own kit.
Got a fancy little paper that says passed.
Yeah, that's in the other room, but yeah. My helmet's in storage, unfortunately. But
so Aspera pushes past Sark after saying it's way above your pay grade, and Cavendish is fully aware of everything anyway. And so she says, come in, and then she's sitting and having a little tea party. Everything's all perfect and very, very British in the way that we recognize polite. And there's even like a waterfall. It was Aspera's favorite blend of tea, which she probably knew just to offset him, and it was the Olympian mint.
Yeah, that's why she's like, it's her own, she makes it herself, it's her own blend or something, and he's like, I don't want to think about what else might be in this tea. It's right. Can't say anything. It's like, yeah, delicious, while he's just like feel biles rising. Because he has zero faith in.
Right. So this being the first time we actually see Cavendish, he is described as being neither young nor old, lean and predatory features were intriguing. Something in the reserve of her movements that whispered a searing sensuality, but that's off-putting more than intriguing. It was her eyes that made Aspera uneasy. They were cold, flat gray of the mist that covered the world, and she rarely blinked. Right.
Important. So.
Shush. But yes.
Well, no, I was just thinking like, hearkening back to our pre-conversation about Andreas and his theory and, that he found anyway. I'm not pinning that on you, but yeah.
Yeah, no. I am 100% certain that what I said to you there in PM that will be relevant for the other Slaters when they get there is true. And it's hinted already there, like here.
So
Alex is just like, I need to read the book.
I finished it, which you would know if you showed up to the pre-conversation.
I was busy.
I'm still going to give you shit. What do you expect?
Some humanity and compassion.
No.
Okay. Bam.
Not only is it his favorite blend, but she has the perfect amount of honey in the blend of tea, which honey is expensive because, again, you need bees and surfaces to be able to harvest them, or you need to get them from one of the other spires that have somehow figured it out. And Cavendish is just also showing off her certain amount of wealth.
Right. I mean, yeah, like I guess it could be a thing because the surface and stuff from the surface is hard and whatever, but it's like, bees aren't particularly like, we're not like, oh man, 3 things are going to survive the nuclear war, right? Taxes, cockroaches, and bees. Like bees are like the very bottom of that list, right? As far as like what's going to survive that long. So
even
and they also
damn.
They don't tend to enjoy being 2 miles up either. They're not quite that high elevation. So even if they don't have it on the surface, it's still going to take industry to have it lower down where they can survive. But they also need all of the plants. They need gardens. They need things to pollinate and stuff. So surface.
Fair.
All right. And so there was no possible way for Cavendish to actually know that he was going to show up, and yet she had known anyway. And he suppresses a shudder because that would be rude, and rude is dangerous. And when she asks, is there something I can do for you? And he explains the Verminosaur's gone missing. He was captured before he can escape and warn. He's still alive. The Verminosaur's Guild of Landing requires him to work in pairs. Claims he was working alone because he didn't want to split the contract with one of his fellows because he was trying to get some more money. He volunteered this information is all she asked. His story didn't change even after vigorous inquisition. But they have to be careful, and Cavendish has better ways of knowing. And so Aspera is asking.
Very classic. Verminosaur was going through the tunnels, did not expect the Auroran Inquisition. So
you never expect the Inquisition.
Certainly not the Aurorans.
Certainly.
Right. So Cavendish says this is a practical mindset for military. They got to be able to make sure what's going on and whether they're going to be captured. And so she will assist. And Aspera says, thank you. And he's trying to get up and leave. And she says, sit down. because they're not finished with their tea. And in fact, she says he must have a scone. She made them herself.
Right. See, it's these little tidbits where she's like a dick back that always annoy me about her. Like, oh, everybody's got to be perfectly polite to me, and it's like she's a dick like a bunch of times, like,
Yeah.
and that doesn't play into it. But if you like roll your eyes at her, she's gonna pull them out of your body.
Yeah.
Like give
She
me a
can be
break.
rude to him
So
by telling him to sit down like this because he was rude by getting up early. He has
Also
to
that-
follow.
She follows
Yeah.
very specifically, like, the polite society rules, right? So it's like it's impolite to not eat that scone she's made by those rules. Not so yeah.
yeah. Did he know about the scones in advance though? So I mean, I'm just saying, like, she was the dick here, not him. But
But they did not finish their tea either, so he was leaving unfinished tea, which blasphemy anyway, right?
sure. I know she should have been like insane from a different spire with less random sensibilities. Like she's Albion, so therefore her neuroses go to tea and tea protocol. Like,
And etiquette, yes.
right.
All right. But that is the introduction of Cavendish and Stark in the end of chapter 19. So we're at 20. And this is Gwen Lancaster and Habel Morning. They're going towards the Spyrox Manor.
Yeah, who does she shoot in the face this chapter?
I don't think she
Just kidding.
shoots anyone, although she
That's crazy.
Yeah. She's not quite yet shooting people in the face yet. Okay. And Bridget is uncomfortable. It's like, I cannot help but think this seems ill-advised. A war has begun. Therefore, somehow we need to serve in the guards. Like, shouldn't we be doing more things? We already have triumphed, is what Gwen says. I already shot someone in the face. Look at that. We met the enemy with deadly force, foiled their designs, and survived. And they were rescued by aeronauts, but hey, they survived.
So she's a fan of Dresden's definition of thwart. So
Yes.
yeah, we've thwarted them.
Gwen says, we were certainly not rescued, not by aeronauts, and most specifically not by a man who was cast out of the fleet for cowardice. And Benedict, oh, this is interesting. So what did happen, Gwen? What is the official wording that's going to happen?
Right.
My plan embraced the necessity of cooperation to overcome greater numbers. We kept the enemy pinned in place until proper amount of force could be brought to bear against them. We were the anvil to the hammer of our reinforcements. And then she's just going to omit the whole thing about like Grimm and his disgrace. And it's just like there was reinforcements and that's all. And Bridget doesn't seem to get this of like, how is she serious? How could you just take away this information from a written record? It's like, this is how history is written down. Gwen lives in a very special world. Apparently, it only looks somewhat like in the place where we mortals reside. And Bridget and Benedict just kind of like pick it. It's like you're making it sound like it was all your idea. You make it sound like everything worked out according to plan. The fight you started when you discharged your gauntlet into that officer's face was very spur of the moment. And it's hardly my fault if they did not ambush us more effectively than they did. Very cat-like right there. All right. But as they're walking towards the Spyrox Manor and they stop talking, she is continually thinking of everything that they've gone through. And even though everything she says, she stands by the fact that they succeeded, she's also getting that guilt of the fact that she murdered somebody. She discharged a gauntlet directly into someone's face, and all he was just a little bit surprised and confused and, well, what in the world is going on before he dies? And she hadn't been able to eat since.
Surprised, confused, and then a smoldering corpse.
Yes. Because
the circle of life.
It's like, beg pardon, miss, could you repeat that? What are you doing? It's like, oh, I'm making a corpse from someone's child. And she can't get that thought out of her head.
Turning you inside out, obviously.
Oh, just charring his head. not turning him inside out, Just a little hole in the head, perhaps some exposed bone and brain matter.
What were his insides on the outside? Because I think that's the definition of inside out. Just saying.
Listen here, you little shit.
Trails becoming X trails.
Right. Pain. So
Lots of pain. I actually had a
Sick
side
reference,
tangent,
bro.
semi side tangent here for Ben.
Yeah, what's up?
I just thought of you have Master Ferris's name now,
I
and
do.
then you had Bombadil before. Like, do you have a type?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't put it like that, but yes, no doubt in my mind. None whatsoever.
Yeah. How would you describe this type? Before I muck it up.
Yoda in the swamp.
No, I was.
Master Bombadil. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
How would
hey,
you?
I'll
How
take
would
it.
you? Yeah, how
I
would
don't know about the
you?
swamp, but
How? I just watched the original trilogy yesterday. That's why I thought of it. Like Yoda in the swamp in the original trilogy is significantly different in his behavior compared to anywhere else. He's way more Bombadil or Master Ferris, like slightly old and unhinged, for lack of a better word. But I kind of feel like
fair.
he fit into that stereotype of the what would you call that stereotype?
Cryptic wizard.
Right. Something like that.
It's got to be cryptic.
Yeah,
He didn't choose Gandalf.
that's true. That's true. Gandalf seems a bit more. It seems a bit more highfalutin. Like I feel like that'd be a bit more dishonest. Hey, Gandalf, that's a big deal. Gandalf's a big deal.
So is Ferris. Like, they're
I
all
don't know.
big deals. Come on. They're still wizards.
Wizards. Yeah.
All right. So they
Right.
get seen into the room where they will be meeting Lord Albion. The Batman, who at the moment he is not named, but we know that to be Vincent.
I'm Batman. Every time I hear Batman.
Gwen is looking at the books on the bookshelves because, of course, there's a lot of them because, of course, that's what Albion is. The histories of Albion written by Daggett and Dean were common enough, but the set by Montclair that had been outlawed 2 centuries before due to scandalous rumors they had spread about the first Spire-Arc of Albion were another matter. But if you're the Lord Spire-Arc of a Spire, of course you can have all the illegal books. Who's going to tell you no?
Oh,
Right.
wait, interesting. Oh, wait, no, never mind. It was a couple of centuries, you said, right?
Mhm.
Before. Because it was like interesting that the first Spire-Arc was a couple of centuries ago, but it was about the first Spire-Arc. The first Spire-Arc could still have been 10,000 years ago or whenever it started. I just thought for a second, I thought it was interesting that the first Spire-Arc was a couple of centuries ago, but that's not
Sure.
really what it implies if you think about it. So.
Yeah.
And I debunked it myself
actually,
before I got there.
I mean, taking it as like if it's literally the first Spire arc, right? And they're, he's a Spire arc after it gets settled. Like, I wonder if the scandal is like they're talking about all this technology and shit that doesn't exist, or he's more like a CEO of a company than he is, a monarch or something. But
yeah.
One rather thick volume was titled Means of Execution Through the Ages and was placed at an elegant balance of nonchalance and availability at eye level of anyone entering the room.
Right.
As threats goes, it's nearly subliminal.
Right.
Yeah. And behind the desk, miniature replicas of each and every airship in the Ethereum fleet. All of them. And as a few of them have been removed as they have been destroyed with the Auroran attack.
Right. Yeah, models, right? So I was like, I wonder if he's got to take them out back and smash them with a mallet when they go down. So
no, when he seems like a guy who likes, his collections. So he definitely puts them on a shelf.
But as much as ships get a similar design and class and stuff, they appear to be unique enough that Grimm can just be like, yes, that's the Itasca, even though it's like the Itasca's got to be one of like dozens of battle cruisers. Be like, yes, because the particular whine of its turbine engines, I can tell it's the Itasca. So
I would guess they take quite a bit of time to build, and maybe there's slight design changes through, little flares or even I can't say it. Technological advancements.
Sure.
Like between each one, so you can tell them apart.
Well, and then you've got uppity Commodores who decide to turn their, enlarge their suite, right? So
You gotta
So
have
there
room.
are personal modifications as
He's
well.
so tiny. He
you know?
can't even fit in a normal suite. Like, what the
Right.
hubris?
Unfair, isn't it? So, yeah, just such a great response. Like, yeah.
Trying not to talk about that book. Stop it.
Sorry, it was relevant and a minor spoiler. So,
So, in every way that matters, this room, this study, is a throne room. This is where Lord Albion does all of his work and his planning and his important stuff. And the Spire Arc is already there, and also so is Captain Grimm, because Grimm had previously had the "you bastard, you don't get to buy my ship, but you wait, how much money are you going to give me for that crystal?"
right. Grimm was already there because he was in his pocket. So, just fold up Grimm, put him in the pocket.
And Grimm is still wearing the same clothing he was wearing when he had rescued and been the reinforcements that Gwen was just talking about.
I mean, Grimm doesn't get a break through this entire book, pretty much. He's
Grimm
being
never
run
gets
ragged.
breaks. Like, when does anything good or lucky happen to him?
They survived the fight. That was pretty lucky. They're in
Right.
At the start.
I believe the crystals count. Like, I know it looks like, golden handcuffs, but I'd still qualify that. Like, if a billionaire came down to me and was like, I would like to give you like a stupid amount of money, I don't know if I would be mad about that.
More like, I mean, precedent is not even really an apt description, but like, here's a blank check of authority and unlimited resources. Essentially, you have to do what you kind of like to do anyway.
Except we're not even that far, right? Because like right now, it's I'm going to give you billions of dollars for a week's worth of work. That's where we're at right now, right? Because he says, do this one job for me and then take the crystals and go if that's what you want. That was the deal, right? Just that he was also the reason why he's called a spider is because he also knows that Grimm is a man of honor and could never do that.
Grimm literally thinks that when the offer is made, like, I mean, if I take it, I can't just.
Yeah, he knows that Grimm knows that he knows that
I know that he knows.
like, yeah. So, yeah.
So, Albion is greeting everybody as they walk in. Heroes in a desperate hour, and please be seated. And Gwen and Benedict kind of know what to do. Bridget does not. Bridget also has a giant cat in her arms that she's like, I'm just going to sit here and try not to break anything. Let's see. Benedict says, "Sir, how may your guards serve you?" It's like, you can start by leaving out the honorifics because he apparently doesn't like that. But it's also ingrained in Benedict and Gwen that you must use the honorifics when you're talking to someone like the fucking Spire Arc. Right. And anyway, wait a moment because they're expecting for 2 more. And then something is hitting the doorknob and blast and curse the confounded things, folly. And Master Ferris walks into the room. It's a very odd bottle green suit that he's wearing. And Gwen realizes it was made entirely of ether silk, not like just a little bit, but like the whole thing. He's wearing a fortune of ether silk. And he's an etherealist, which means he can do quite crazy things with it.
The suit might come up again.
Right.
It's a super suit.
Right. Like, I mean, yeah, if you can charge ether silk with ether and fly, like it for all intents and purposes, it could be an Iron Man suit, but it's just like a tailored suit, right? So
gets to
kind of a
run
wild
around
concept.
looking like a dapper gentleman. In green suit.
Well, doing magic and shit. So
I can't help but think, like, I know this probably isn't. It's probably more like a Victorian-looking suit because of the setting. But I can't help but think that it was more like a 70s-looking suit for some reason because it's Master Ferris, and I just
right. Well, it's funny because they talk about how out of date it is, or how out of date his mannerisms are, or things like that. And so it's like, what does that mean at this point in time, right? Because it's like we're 10,000 years in the future, presumably, but pretending that it's like 1798. So like, what's going on? Like, so is he bowing as though it was the 1400s? Like, what does a suit look like? Is he got the what is it, the frock or whatever? Like he's got the puffy shirt coming out, or is puffy shirt the style now because it's age of sail? I don't know, but yeah.
These are all very good questions. Hopefully, we can get some illustrations or more definite descriptions. But this is the really fun moment that Ferris has been waiting for, because he walks in and says, Addison, because he's talking to the Spyrock, and then he turns and sees Grimm and says, ah, yes, I need this man. And Albion's just like, that's why he's here for you. And how in the world did Albion know? Like, unless Ferris had told him, but like, it didn't seem like Ferris has actually had this communication other than telling Grimm, we will meet tomorrow, and introduced, yeah. And now tomorrow is today of we get to meet. It was deucedly clever of you, Addison, which I feel like does confirm that they didn't actually speak.
I thought it was just like Ferris was lost because like Addison seems like he's confused and just kind of taking it in stride, so because it seemed like Master Ferris asked him or told him what he needed, and Grimm fit the bill, and then Ferris forgot about it or moved through a time hole or something. But yeah, that because like Addison very much seems like bemused by the whole thing.
I should just keep reading whenever I have this question. It's like, that was deucedly clever of you, Addison. However, did you manage it? You told me about him yesterday, Master Ferris, and advised me to secure his services. It's like, you told me about this, so therefore...
Sir, you told me to put $6 billion on Black 13, and it landed Black 13. Like, you can see the future. That's how it happened. So, yeah.
And Ferris goes, really? Are you quite sure? It's entirely.
Right.
There are only so many experienced independent captains with damaged ships willing to take you to landing to choose from. And you sure he's a proper one? Yes. Captain, I told you, did I not, that you and I would meet today? It's like, very well. Right. Shall we get going? It's like, wait. We have more people to load up. And Master Ferris, if you please, could you possibly share the reason that you need the good captain's vessel? To find the enemy, of course. Like, yeah, but how do you do that when you're just going to landing? Please tell us more information. Is there anything more
by changing his mind? So
not quite yet. Is there anything more specific you can tell me? Albion asks, and Ferris considers that and says, doorknobs are extremely complex technology.
It's that kind of line that makes me want to be Master Ferris. Honestly, Master Ferris is where I get the clever in this book. He's consistently the best character who knows exactly what's going on, and it's wonderful.
Well, and it's funny too, because like he almost always knows the answer that you're looking for and still answers it otherwise. And like
it's you get like a better, he can't help himself. Yeah.
Right. You get a better hint of that when they're like, spoilers for the next book a little bit, but it's like they're talking about the brief and Grimm's like, well, how did you find it or whatever? He's like, well, it was a little flimsy. And he's like, what do you mean? Well, the parchment, it just flopped around, but he immediately launched into the answer that Grimm was actually looking for. So you knew he understood the question and what they were talking about, but he still had that like mannerism anyway, So, but yeah, it's just like, it's like dad jokes for wizards, I guess, where it's just like, so.
Yes, that's how it is. Exactly. It is. It's a wizard joke. He answered the question exactly as Albion asked it, but not in the way that Albion wanted.
Right.
All right. So Albion is like, do you think landing is in danger? And Ferris like, of course it is. We all are. But Grimm's like, okay, yes, of course it's going to be a target. They're taking the really meat of the conversation that they're trying to have because of how much commerce goes through landing. And Spyrock provides it 75% of all commerce that is in Albion goes through Habel Landing. Because every Habel charges for passage through its portion of the transport spirals. The spirals on the inside, it's got like ramps and carts and stuff. So it's got tolls and it's got people needing to work it. So going around it.
Yeah, I was confused when it got brought up in the second book. And I'm like, do they skip over this? But I just wasn't paying attention the 4 times I've read this book. So, yeah. Because there is definitely an internal highway of sorts. So,
Yeah, transport by barge or windlass is cheaper, faster, safer. By bypassing some or all the tariffs, a merchant can as much as double his profit margin. And so this is why landing is going to be the target, because especially if Rora is saying, you have too much money, give me some, I'm going to take yours away. That's the target.
Yeah.
All right. So if the shipyard at landing were destroyed, how much harm would it do to the spire? Incalculable. Eventually the shipyard could be rebuilt, but the economy would be crippled or paralyzed in the short term. And short term is what matters when war is on the front. So there are still Aurorans inside the spire. They still have to be defeated. And the shipyard, they need to therefore get down to landing. There have been 500 Auroran Marines, a full battalion that got into or were dropped onto Albion, and therefore how many have been accounted for? 49. Those taken in the attack at Lancaster Battery and several men who evidently attempted to parasail and missed their target. Their bodies were found on the surface. So there's 451 still there, somewhere to be found.
That's a chunk, you know. Mm-hmm. There's still like tens of thousands of Albions and stuff, but you know, like,
yeah. 450 heavily armed Marines, and they have 3,000 in the guard, which it's an okay number, but where do they go looking?
Over, yeah, a 2 mile wide, 2 mile tall spire. Like 3,000 does not actually sound very much. Like, yeah, it sounds like 6-to-1 odds, but you know, when they're like 2 at a time, apparently with Bridget, or small squads when they need to be, you know, like that's a lot of space to cover. So.
Mm-hmm. So therefore they need a small group of people who can go into wherever they need to go, wherever Ferris tells them to go searching for the 450 Marines somewhere, because the other 10,000 occupants of the spire are not going to be able to do anything.
Yeah. And I mean, it's like 10,000 Habel almost, or something like that. It's like there's like a chunk of people, but I want to say it's probably less than millions, but yeah, like.
No, yeah, I think you're right. It's probably more like 10 or something thousand per Habel, and then there's like a bunch of different Habels and levels. Morning and landing are the most popular ones, but there are plenty of others.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I want to get digressed into all of this world building and stuff right now, but we just don't have time. So
32%, 32 minutes in.
Right.
All right. So with all of these little details put together, Gwen says like, oh, so there was someone from the inside, someone who knows the spire, who was able to tell them exactly where to land and exactly where to do the thing that was the most devastating. And yes, there is a traitor among us, and possibly among the guard. And these people who just graduated as of 10 minutes ago, therefore could not possibly be involved. So he knows that they're safe.
Also, they had the very bad luck of being competent. So, you know.
Mm-hmm. And the reward for work well done is more work.
Great.
And Albion says, like, of course, the people who just graduated aren't going to be the ones that are the traitors. And Benedict's like, well, what about me? Because he graduated like 2 years ago. It's like, oh, come on. It's not you.
Right.
Gwen thought that her cousin didn't know whether to look relieved or somewhat insulted.
I like that question partially as kind of a lampshading thing for the Jim, just saying, you know, theoretically, couldn't it be one of the main characters and just have another character just dismiss it out of hand?
Right.
Is very satisfying.
Yeah.
And simultaneously gets that character off the table and tells us about all the characters involved and puts your mind in the right direction. So it's all around very good. Highly approved.
All right. So Bridget asks, like, okay, so we're the ones that are going to go do things, but what are we doing? What's the whole mission? And this is when they get a small lesson in the idea of operational security. But Ferris is going to be in charge, and so they're going to do whatever he says. But like the whole point of it is like, you get a piece, and no one gets the full piece, and therefore if the enemy captures them, they can't get the full picture. But of utmost importance is that Ferris returns safe and accomplishes whatever it is Ferris says he needs to do. And of course, to that end, they all have their individual assignments. Bridget's going to go talk to cats, and Gwen is going to knock down any walls, and Benedict's going to make sure that Ferris is alive. And Raoul is just going to be Raoul. Okay. So, chapter 21, they get to the shipyards, and it's the first time Bridget's ever been outside. Because like she's always had a roof over her head because they're in a spire. They don't go outside. Outside is scary and it's got too much sky. And so she's afraid of falling off the spire, and Raoul is making fun of her. She's talking to Grimm about it and about how cats there was a cat on Perilous. It was much the same. He didn't take orders well, and we were lucky to have him. And Raoul really likes Grimm. It's like, yes, stick with him. He knows to give me my due. It's so painfully bright outside, and there is no ceiling, and she gets goggles because they get sick if there's too much light, or they get bewildered if there's too much light. So that's why everyone has to wear all the goggles. You're doing better than I did, Grimm said. I lost my breakfast, and I couldn't make myself look up again for days. And Raoul is very interested in all this outside thing. And then he sees the ship, and the ship has giant trees on it. And he thinks it's the best thing ever.
Grimm ship trees.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he very much wants to go at the tallest point as he possibly can on the ship trees.
Only natural.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, I think my cat would do the same.
It's not even a box. Like,
yeah. There might be a box.
Oh, the box comes later.
Okay. If one doesn't protect one's eyes from the etheric currents that in the sunlight, it can do something strange to one's mind, and we get a small little hint of what it means to be an etherealist right now, of like the power runs through them, and sometimes it leaves holes. It takes things as a cost. So goggles are sufficient for the likes of you and me, but there's no protection for a man like Master Ferris. Well, he's mad, and so is his apprentice. This is only the fourth etherealist I've ever met in my lifetime. They're all mad. The question is only or not whether it shows. Can etherealists really do such great things in some of the stories, like call lightning with a word of power, make mystic gestures, and fly? They can do more than that.
Only if they've got an ether silk suit. Blah, 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 blah. Or too many words.
Maybe a few crystals.
Right. One the size of a child's heart. Why does it keep describing it like that? Why has it got to be a heart? Why can't it just be like the size of your fist?
Maybe it's shaped like a heart. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe it's foreshadowing. I don't know. Like,
yeah, maybe it crystallized inside somebody and he ripped it out. Right. So looking at the ship and the ship trees, and Bridget's looking at the weapons. There's gun emplacements, and some of them were still damaged from the previous fight that they just got into. There was wood that had been cut and recut to be able to fix it. An entire ship made of wood, so much wood that it beggared her imagination, because it took a week's worth of profits to be able to afford one polished wood slab for their battery. And all of it being made out of wood in a ship, it's like another set of billions of dollars it costs for a ship to be made.
Right. Yeah. The economics of weird is economics of wood is kind of weird, because it's like they're clearly on the surface. They've got people, they've got outbuildings and stuff like that. It's not impossible to get. Certainly people die more, getting it and that sort of thing. But it's just like, I don't know. They always make it seem like, somehow, for example, we never talk about the cost of steel. So can they vat grow steel, which then corrodes and is a much more finite resource, but it's wood that it's like, oh my God, wood is like so freaking expensive. And it's like, there's wood everywhere on this planet. That's like saying, oh man, it's expensive to get a glass of water to drink, maybe, yes. But like to just have a cup of water, like it's everywhere, but
they're
steel
at the wrong port in Catan,
right.
So they can't trade for wood.
Well, and not just steel, but like steel and copper, right? Because it's like, the copper goes hand in hand to protect it. They're always talking about copper clad steel. And it's like, cool. Can you grow that? Because why don't we talk about how, like, that sword, who would fucking fight a duel with a sword? Are you crazy? That shit cost more than my life. Like, and they never make a big deal about that, but it's
wouldn't you have to go to the surface to get the wood mostly, which is like, big dangerous.
And it's the steel rain, right? Where steel comes from. They just bottle it up and they've got it in the steel jars. Like,
well, no, I guess what I'm saying is which would be more cost effective for the danger of having to do that, right? Like steel has a lot more use than say wood at this point as a resource.
They make plates out of it, but
I mean the whole structure, right? And their weapons and this, that, and the other thing, like I feel
travel distance is also a factor, right? That's why landing is so rich on wood. How they also discussed it with the Spanish
Aurorans.
Aurorans, yes.
There's like 2 spires in this book. They're one of them.
Yeah, but this book was like months ago. So
right. So like up top, it's more rare. Like the butcher block, right? And while downstairs, like everything's just built of wood.
Yeah,
and
I guess I'm not really saying that it doesn't make sense that it's more expensive, right? I'm just I find it a little odd how much of a big deal they make out of it. Like, are the turbines made out of wood? Because they're probably made out of steel, and I gotta imagine that's pretty freaking expensive. In
theory. Though we don't know this, since a ground mineral like steel, they could have deposits below the tower that could just be going down. It could be encapsulated, thought off when they built the tower, like they will need steel and go down.
Right.
But I don't know.
Yeah, I know. It just it's one of the things that I find odd how much he addresses, but not that. Like that's taken for granted, but holy crap, is a slab of wood expensive. And books, like, even though they're made from sawdust, which is a byproduct, are still immensely expensive because how much that costs and takes and things like that. So I mean, maybe just chalk it up to like world building, and this is how he wanted to go about it and whatever. But it struck me in the moment that it's like, let's talk about how expensive this is, but we got like steel and copper everywhere.
I mean,
who's doing the mining?
If you think wood was precious before, wood stocks are about to go through the roof after this.
Just trying to figure out if that's just like a wood stock joke or if it's like
it's multi-layered because I'm a genius.
5. Ben, 5 layers.
He wasn't even here for that conversation.
I know.
Oh shit, Ben's alive.
I'm alive.
Yeah. The thing about inside,
you haven't moved or blinked once since I got here, so I would just kind of.
I thought the same. Earlier, I thought the same when I asked him a question. I was like,
"Very rare wooden cutout."
Is it a still picture? Because he was so still. He was just sitting. I'm illustrating, but I don't have my camera on, so I don't know why I'm doing that.
Well, we don't know that you exist either, so there's a difference.
While it's very realistic that we would have a cardboard cutout of Ben like this, I still think if I was going to have a cardboard cutout of one of y'all, I would want it in a more provocative pose. So just, I'm just letting your imagination go there. So,
anything for you, Justin.
Andreas.
We still have to do that bikini calendar, right? For the past Patreon.
Calendar, yes, exactly.
Yes. I've been working on my beach body, so
which is great since you have no beaches to speak of.
No, it's the West. It's called the West Desert. The whole thing is beach. Like it's sand for miles. No water.
I was going to say. I think that's the defining feature of a beach is you have to have the water element. Otherwise, you're just a desert.
I guess. Law.
Words, la.
Right.
Okay. So Grim goes off and does the captainy things with Predator, and Bridget is kind of left behind or with Raoul and just looking at it. And then Folly is there. And she says, like, oh my, have you ever seen one like that? But she's talking to her crystals, even though she's right next to Bridget. And Bridget's confused and tries talking to her and introduces herself and Raoul. And then Folly turns around and says the same things back to the crystals. So the crystals get to know who Bridget and Raoul is. And then Bridget wants to know her name. And she says, she wants to know my name, but I'm simply awful at introducing myself. Perhaps I should tattoo Folly on my head and then people can just read it. And that's good enough for them.
Right.
Like, Bridget takes it like, okay. Then
Folly just like channels me my energy right there. It's like I feel that on a spiritual level. Sometimes I'm just like, yeah, just on the forehead. That's me. I don't have to awkwardly introduce myself. Thank you.
Name tags exist.
But the forehead makes a statement, you know.
I was going to say, isn't a sticker kind of a form of paper, which is a byproduct of wood, and we've already established that no one can afford that.
You could make it out of anything else. It could be a copper name tag, you know.
Make it out of crystals, and then you can just like,
yeah,
you know.
I mean, she could make it light up everything. Like, come
on. You know, have a talk with her the next time you
see.
To be
fair, she could just have little crystals floating above her head, spelling out "My name is Folly," glowing.
I feel like that's one of those things that would be attention drawing and not something she'd be fond of.
She does do many things that draws attention.
I mean, sure, but like not really wanting to. I feel like it's more of a, you know, anybody that's talking to their crystals, you know, all the woo-woo people that think crystals can heal you in this world. If you added talking to them as an element, people would stare. They wouldn't necessarily want you to stare, but they would stare.
Some of those people want the attention, definitely.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, sure.
Mm.
I would be one of them. But ironically.
Al says, this girl has too many things in her head, I think. And Folly says, oh, the cat is right. All the things I've forgotten, plus all the things I haven't. It's strange that the Etherealists can understand the cats, but maybe it isn't as well. Maybe it's just part of like whatever frequency they speak on is also one that Etherealists can hear. Yeah, Gwen and Benedict are fighting. It's like, maybe you didn't need to actually threaten to get the guy fired and court-martialed. You could have just asked politely. It's like, ought I have threatened to charge him with treason, do you think? That one bears the death penalty. Benedict just like, I can't talk to you. What is wrong with you? Okay. Then they meet Creedy, and then they just all go away into their various places. And Gwen in the Predator is like, she has to still make sure that everything is going to go smoothly, and she does not trust Grim because the paper said that he was rushed out for cowardice, and therefore this is a problem. She needs to know that they're in good hands.
She's like the Penguin. Wouldn't that make you a coward? You know, so
right. So she walks up to Grim and Creedy, and they're talking to the Kettle off to the front, and they say very politely, how may I be of service of you? It's like, I have a few questions. And Gwen said, are you the same Byron Creedy who lately served on the battlecruiser Glorious? And then Creedy gets uncomfortable. Were you not hobbled by the Fleet Review Board for conduct unbecoming an officer and a gentleman? And he says, yes. I may be required to place the success of our Inquisition in the very lives of your hands. I need to know what kind of man you are. She says, we have little time, and I fear I must be direct and plain. You were cast in disgrace from the active service roles of the fleet. Your captain was exiled from the service entirely. Many of your crew members have several similar service records with the fleet. Quite a collection of men in disgrace. Like, yes, perhaps you would prefer to travel the remainder of the distance to landing without enduring the disgrace of our company. I'm going to just throw you off the side and let you go the quick way. Creedy doesn't quite threaten Gwen, but he's like, I would have a care what you had to say about the captain in front of any of his officers or crew, myself included. None of us particularly care to hear ill spoken of the man, and none of us will care who your parents are if you insult the captain. But she says, but have I said anything untrue? She knows how to walk that line because she's a fucking Lancaster and knows the politics. You've said nothing untrue, but you've also said nothing that is complete. And he says some more things and then walks off. But Gwen isn't done with the whole thing, and she wants to get more answers out of Grimm. And he says to her, like, why are you provoking my executive officers? Because I've always found that people's reactions are more honest when they are tired, and I want to test this before he went to his bunk. And you're speaking to me now for the same reason. It's like, yeah, something like that. He thinks that she's too young to be so ruthless. There are many fleet captains whose men would sour on them if they suffered the casualties your crew did in battle. And there are many fleet captains who are idiots. It was a fight that needed to happen. They understand that. I didn't kill those men as the Aurorans did, and they understand that too. And she asks directly about the perilous incident, whatever he will say, and he says, I have nothing to say about it. That's what everyone seems to think. The records of the Inquisition afterwards have been sealed. And the Admiralty says that it should be in the past and left there. She describes that there's a fleet captain dead mid-cruise, executive officer beaten into a coma. 3 young lieutenants left to bring a warship and a crew safely home through pirate skies. Lieutenants Grimm, Bayard, and Rook, to be precise. And Bayard is now a Commodore, or going to be. Grimm is cashiered out, and Rook is on his way to buying the Admiralty. As she describes it more, he just says, I am somewhat familiar with the tale. I did live it. It gives me serious concerns. She says, are you a coward, Captain? And he just says, when needed, miss.
Right.
I'm not sure what to make of that answer. And if you'd send for me a quarter of an hour before arrival, and then Grimm leaves. And then she turns over to Kettle. It's like, do you believe what they said about him at the court-martial?
Yeah.
She's not letting go of it at all.
Kettle was also on the ship, wasn't he? Like, I think it becomes explicit in the next book, but it's like Kettle has served with him since Fleet, I think, as well. So it's just like, of all the people to try and get, confidence from, like.
Oh, this is the British, right? They need a good Kettle.
All very true. Right now he says, I didn't know him when he was in Fleet, but Spirestone is heavy, fire is hot. The captain does his duty no matter what it costs him.
It's almost poetical.
Yeah. It's quite the feat for a man like Kettle.
What's that supposed to mean?
It's just he's not usually poetical in his talks. He likes the flashy things much more.
Now, if that isn't the pot calling the kettle black.
All right. So now Gwen has learned something of Grimm and the crew, and she says, okay, she's going to go take a nap while they're all traveling down the landing. That is the end of chapter 22.
We're doomed. Yeah.
Can we do 23?
We better.
In time?
Like,
who's we?
Yeah.
It's all on you, director.
Right. Some of us just got here, so he's still got to put in his hour. So
yeah, you do.
I disagree with that assessment. I got a muffin to eat.
You were late and you didn't eat breakfast, or like you're gonna inflict that on us too?
Well, first of all, I would be muted if I did. Second of all, part of the lateness encapsulates many activities that didn't get done. Ben can take over for me. He's got this go.
Thank you. I'm glad. Thanks for the vote of confidence.
It's a vote. I wouldn't go as far as confidence. I recognize you as a member, but I do not grant you the rank of confidence.
Oh, goodness.
All right. Grimm attempts to sleep. He never, ever is allowed to sleep fully. And he's badgered awake. And so Creedy is there and says that there's a visitor. And it's like, why would there be a visitor from Fleet? None, like, as we've established, Fleet doesn't like him. And he's feels bad that he can't. He doesn't have time to like do the proper change and shave and everything and look all proper like a fleet captain. But he's not a fleet captain, as he reminds himself. There's a. It's Bayard, of course, that's coming up to visit Predator for a minute. And Bayard is aghast at how damaged Predator is after the interaction with Itasca.
I mean, it was a battle cruiser. It's kind of its job.
Yeah.
Is to beat up on little ships like Grimm's. So
yeah, thinks it does a very good job at that. Okay. We heard you had been injured again while playing hero during the attack, and Abigail insisted that I look in on you.
Kind of, yeah, also interesting, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think Abigail exists.
Oh, she does. I think you're going to like her, at least in part.
Yeah.
At least in part. Okay. I still don't think she exists.
So the rumor mill started performing to specifications. I'm afraid I already had this when it started. And Bayard is like, yes. So you repelled an assault by Auroran Marines with one hand. It's like, my crew did the majority of that. Naturally. Well, you stood about offering critique, I suppose. As if you know me.
Right.
And you had no further injuries from a critically pilloried crewman, perhaps? That will ease Abigail's mind greatly. How about that brandy? What brandy? The brandy you're about to give me. All right, so they go off into Grimm's quarters and they talk and they drink to absent friends. It's official. The Spire Council has declared a state of war with Spire Aurora. It's inevitable and ugly. And Admiral Watson, whoever he is, he does very defensive things. He's very smart, only in a certain way. And all he's going to do is just hunker down. And they know this to be the bad idea. Every element of First Fleet is currently sailing in a giant circle around the Spire to watch for trouble. Right. But because there's war upon them, Bayard thinks that Grimm can get his job back in Fleet if that's what he wants. He can be the official captain that is in his soul. He can do all of that again. He's an experienced combat commander. He's got more than a little respect for the actions at Lancaster Battery. People can write up all sorts of things for him and to be able to get him there. And he wouldn't just be a lieutenant again. He would actually be able to be a captain because Bayard is a commodore. He needs a captain. He needs a flag captain, a valiant. This is actually, it's a really good position for him. But now Grimm is working for the Spire Arc and he can't turn that down after he's been handed billions of dollars of crystals.
A good pirate would do both.
He's a very bad pirate. Like, this is bigger than me. It's bigger than Hamilton Rook and his family. It's bigger than your wounded pride. Fleet needs you. Then I look forward to being notified in writing of the clearing of my name and the restoration of my rank and standing in Fleet, which he knows is never, ever going to happen. And Bear just says, damn your pride. And Grimm's like, I know what you're asking me, but I can't do it. And Bear says, Abigail said as much, but I had to try. It's all very confusing now.
Yeah, I'm this scene entirely is disconnected with the next book in my mind because Bridget very specifically talks about how they're not quite at war or something in the next book, right? And they're like, the council approved the war. We're officially at war. And I'm like, so the war started. We're not still posturing.
It's also, it's Abigail. They made it clear that they had never seen each other. They never really known each other. And Bayard keeps saying, well, Abigail said as much, and maybe it's just because of how much Bayard talks about him, but...
Right.
Yeah.
Well, granted, I haven't started the second book yet, but is it like the start of the Red Court War where it was official in name, but they didn't do a lot for a while because everyone was still jockeying for position?
The way it kind of makes out is that, it's been a Cold War still, right? They're still like attacking each other's shipping and stuff like that, but there haven't been direct conflicts, and they make it being like, oh, somebody's going to escalate it and then they're going to make it a full-on war. And it's like, it is a full war if you've declared it, right? You didn't just say it, you declared it. So,
Good name.
Yeah.
Baird is also there to give advance warning that Creedy is about to be put back onto active duty, so Grimm is about to lose his executive officer. That's hardly surprising. And they've got maybe a week before that happens. And Baird says, "You'll need to have a meal with us soon, wartime permitting." Yeah. But this arrangement that you have with the Spire Arc, will it last? Perhaps, perhaps not. It's probably the most permanent job he's had in forever.
Other than being a pirate. So he's been doing that for a while.
He's just very, very bad at it. He's too honorable for it.
Yeah. I feel like he's kind of worse as a, private ship captain, but,
Yeah.
So.
Baird says, like, well, then I reserve the right to speak to you on the subject again. It's like, Grimm warns him that the answer's not going to change. Like, that's fine. I'm just going to annoy you about it the whole time.
Right.
They go outside, and Captain says, "What is that at the very top of your forward mast?" And Grimm looks up. Apparently, it is a cat. Because Raoul has run up all the ship trees. Okay, 1 hour.
Yeah, you did good.
Ended chapter 23. 36% of the way through this book.
I would like to say we did good. It was a team effort.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Carried entirely.
Good hustle,
Carried
team. Good
entirely
hustle.
by the director.
Well, I think my lack of presence certainly didn't hinder anything. So I'm going to take some credit there.
If we were in the baseball dugout, we would be chewing sun seeds right now and slapping each other's butts, right? That's how that works.
Seeds.
I don't know.
This is that scene from a movie where you've got an alien from outer space trying to describe Americanism to you.
I know sports ball.
Yeah, they go with the baseball reference, and you're all like, I guess.
Isn't baseball big in Americas?
It is. Not as big as it used to be, but it is.
Right? Yeah. As
Currently, the NFL
Right.
reigns supreme.
Yeah, I've recently been getting some basketball suggestions on my different feeds for some reason because I've clicked something.
Don't do that. The NBA is not worth watching.
Yeah, I was like, the NBA, I was like, this is not what I remember as a kid. They're just like, are they even playing by the rules anymore? It doesn't seem like it.
No, they're not.
Really? Has it changed that much?
Oh, yeah, no. There's no... They double dribble, they palm, they take 5 steps before... taking another dribble. It's just they don't care anymore.
I saw one guy where I almost felt like he just ran with the ball under his arm, jumped up and put it in. Yeah.
Interesting. I haven't watched a game for a while, so
don't. There's no point.
Yeah, gotcha.
Watch tennis. Unironically, I like tennis more anyway. But watch anything. Watch darts. Don't watch the NBA.
Darts is pretty sick though.
Darts I find is more fun to play than watch. It's kind of like pool and bowling, and I get the appeal, but I would rather be doing those activities than watching them, as opposed to baseball and football, which
like the high level pool stuff. When I stumble upon that, I find that really intriguing. It's insane what they can do with the precision. It's unreal.
Mm-hmm. No, we will not blame the Globetrotters because they were a meme team. That was their whole shtick.
You can't blame the Globetrotters. That's just supposed to be fun.
Exactly. They're like circus basketball for a reason. The actual NBA doing that is stupid.
Right. All right. So write this down as a future topic, apparently, for next year when we're finally done with these 2 books. So.
Basketball. Just have easy rant for an hour.
I was going to say, it's just going to be me complaining for like 6 minutes because none of you care. And then...
Yeah. But we can listen. When's the last time you've headed up an episode? It's been a minute. So.
Well, that's,
It's either that or Thrawn, right?
That's mostly for the fans' sake that I don't head up episodes that often.
Yeah, but I made it through Dark Force Rising, so I got 2 out of 3 now. So now if I get Last Command, I'll be ready for our trilogy talk. So that's a good point. Thanks, Master Ferris.
You're welcome.
Yeah, he's come from the future to tell you we're still talking about Star Wars. So
good Star Wars, though. Not
right, like literally, like there was the original trilogy, and then there was this. So before it got bad,
I was before the dark times.
Right. Well, good job, director. Next week,
good job.
We're
I
still
think Ben should
talking
plug our
about
stuff this time.
Check out all the stuff.
Listen, amateur. Let me show you how it's done.
Oh no.
Oh, wait, show yourself first, and then show them how it's done.
I can't. There are people running around the background all the time.
There were people running around in everyone's background except mine. And
They don't want to be on the interwebs. That's why Justin turns it off too. Like, when people come in, it's okay. I think if Justin does it, I can do it. Right?
Not for like a whole episode. People got to see the face.
Yeah, really.
They
That's
gotta
the
measure
whole
the
reason they tune in.
air
That's the
growth,
moneymaker. Oh yeah, that's much better. Good.
The light's
Yes.
not on, so
I was gonna say you got that ominous little like yellow thing up there.
But yeah, this has been a production of the Broken Jars podcast. While we weren't recording, we have a Patreon. We have a Discord. You come. What's the URL to our Patreon?
Isn't it just like
Patreon.com/Broken Jars?
Broken Jars?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
No
Or if
XYZ.
you're coming from
That's
Andreas's neck of the woods, it's
website.
.eu.
Yeah. But Patreon.com/Broken Jars. You give us some money. You get on our Discord. At some point, there'll be a calendar, pin-up style, 3 months each, something like that. We'll see. It'll be good. And until then, you can have gift wars with us and argue with us on Discord. We probably have a testimonial in the chat right now, I'll bet. What do you say, Patreoners? You wanna tell us how great it is on the Discord? And then
why did Patreon have a hard F? I don't understand.
Listen here, okay.
What do
This
you
is
say?
this is my
Patreon.
second language. You wanna quibble with my pronunciations? Then
Yes.
you can do it.
Yes.
I
I
I
want
just want to know why it had a hard F. What were you going to say instead of
I
Patreon?
want you to learn how to speak it properly, not have to say it ourselves because you can't.
I don't know what else. Do we have a testimonial yet, Alex? Anyone?
Alex, anyone, you're the one doing this. You should
I
have been
can't
looking at
see
the
the
Discord
chat right
for
now.
live action.
Okay. New pivot. We pivot. Listen.
Here's
We're done.
what
We're
the
done.
last comment was. Like,
Big
this,
lumpy ass
everything of you is described by salad pizza.
Yes.
I will have you know that we ordered pizza and it's coming soon and it's gonna be delicious, but there's no
God's
salad on it.
Cut the stream
You
off
wanna-
before he lies.
Because you put the salad on after it's done.
If you go to Patreon and sign up and get in our Discord, which will happen automatically because we use technology, then I will post a picture of my pizza and you can rate it out of 10. It will be a 10 though.
Out of context, even in context, that doesn't sound good. There's no context where that line.
It will
coming from
be
you
it will be
sounds good.
delicious. There are like 6 types of
Even
meat
when
on
you
it.
don't put salad on pizza, your pizzas are still horrifying because you put like corn and tortilla chips and chicken.
That's when I make them, and that was based on a Domino's recipe.
Oh yes, the pinnacle of
that
pizza.
doesn't save it.
That's American.
It's
No.
not.
Listen, Patreon.com/Broken Jars, Discord. You can yell at me about my pizza. It's all good. You can yell at Alex for not liking good pizza. It's all good.
He's got a checklist of 18 things he hasn't gotten done, but this he took away from Ben to do. And
Yes, right.
We got this
Ben
out
was
of
the
it.
amateur. This is what a professional looks like. So
Listen, Unhinged Energy works, okay? It sells Patreons.
you know what?
We'll
I'm going to
find
hold you to that.
That's
I'm
all
gonna
I
look at
got.
the
That's all
numbers
I
next
got.
week.
Take us out.